Welcome to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guest today is Kristen Oliver, City Councillor with the City of Thunder Bay. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you, Steve.
So let's start with a little bit of kind of personal history. Did you grow up in Thunder Bay? Give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Thunder Bay. I was born and raised in Westfort, actually, the ward that I'm happy to represent on City Council. And I went to Fort William Collegiate. I went on to Confederation College. I'm married to my husband, Rick, who's a high school teacher at Westgate. And we have two sons, one in grade 10 and one in grade 3.
Okay, so you're like the model Canadian family with two kids and, you know.
Well, our second one came a little later in life. I always say if you want to screw up a retirement plan, have a baby at 40, but it's the way it is.
Well, you know, there's something about those kids having other kids that also impact the retirement age.
Yeah, it keeps you young. It's good.
And what about your work career?
So,
what's your background in terms of work?
Yeah, so...
I mean, beyond, I'm sorry, raising a family, which is huge work, and it's probably the most important work we have, but...
like I said, I graduated from Confederation College I took the health record technician program, but I knew probably within the last year that I wasn't going to pursue that as a career. But having said that, it provided an opportunity for me to have some really good skills that I've acquired to continue on with every other employment that I've had. A lot of the research skills that I was taught, and it was really, really beneficial. But I guess once I finished college, I worked at Lakehead University for a little bit at the clinic on campus. And then an opportunity presented itself to go and work with Lynn McLeod as her constituency assistant. So I began constituency work. And
Lynn was the MPP
for Thunder Bay Atikokan at that time.
Right.
Yeah. So I stayed with her until 2003. I had my first son then, and I decided I was going to stay off for a bit. But then an opportunity presented itself in 2004 with Lynn Peterson, and she was the mayor of the City of Thunder Bay at that time. And Lynn was a city councillor when I was working in the MPP's office, and there were some initiatives that we sort of worked on together that she was trying to create some synergies between the province and the city. And so a part-time position opened up, and I thought, I'm going to apply for this, and I ended up getting that. So I went on to be the policy assistant to the mayor for 7 years.
So you've got kind of a different perspective than many of us. You've kind of been behind the closed doors at times.
Yeah, I have. But it actually provided some really good opportunities for me to learn more about our community, about our region, how the provincial government, the federal government, how everything fits in together, how we rely on each other. And once I had my second son in 2010, so I was going to stay off for a bit. And I did a couple jobs. I worked with the Disaster Relief Committee when we had the big flood on May 28th and that year, and it was devastating. And then in 2013, I started with the Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association. I'm the executive director of NOMA, so we lobby the provincial and the federal government for all the municipalities in Northwestern Ontario.
So is that a full-time job now?
It is.
And you're doing that now?
I do.
As well.
I
so you're
do
a busy
work.
person.
I keep busy. Yeah, that's for sure.
Gosh.
Yeah, I'm a type A person, so I like the stress and being busy and juggling lots of balls at one time. I can only do it because I do have the support of my husband. I mean, he's an amazing support for me and our two children. There's no way I could do it without him. I really rely on him to be there when I can't. But I do try to make every effort to make sure that my kids don't really notice that I'm as busy as I am. I try to make sure I'm there first thing in the morning when they wake up, and I'm there for dinner and bedtime, and we try to make that balance work.
Well, I think that is really the challenge of most families these days, with both parents working.
Yeah.
And kids. Really, we're trying to encourage them to be involved in all kinds of things.
Right.
And how do you keep that balance? So.
Well, and that is a challenge. There's no doubt about it. But I think at the same time, I don't know if I'm saying this just to make myself feel better, but I'm raising capable young adults. Like, my children know how to do laundry. They know how to feed themselves when they're hungry. They're great with problem-solving skills because they've had to. Because they're in situations where I'm not there to hover and care to every whim that they have. And I look at some of their friends, and I'm like, I think it's okay that that they're in a situation where they have to be a little bit more self-sustainable and self-sufficient, and I'm okay with that.
Right on.
They seem to be okay with it.
That's great. Well, so you've spent a bunch of years, 15, 20 years, working in a way, not as an elected official, but
Right.
still on municipal and provincial affairs. Why did you decide to go the political route and run for city council?
So, it's really an interesting, and it's actually been eye-opening for me. So you're right, like I have been immersed in this world for quite some time. And I think I kind of always knew in the back of my head that this was imminent, that I would probably seek provincial office at some point or municipal office at some point. Like I knew that I was probably going to go somewhere. As I started to age and my children are aging, it was municipal politics was calling to me, especially when I work with the municipal sector across the region. I see the issues and challenges that we have regionally. I also see the strengths and things that we can create here and the opportunities. So I just felt that this was the time for me to put my name in the hat there and see what happened. And it was a really positive experience. And I think a lot of people really resonated with my message because for the most part, I'm the same. I have a young family. We all want better for our community. People wanted to feel some connectivity with the city and their elected officials. And I feel that that's important. Like I think communication is our key role as a city councillor. And I'm really happy to be in this role now.
So what does a better community look like to you?
There's a lot of things I want to see. Of course, our infrastructure is crumbling, to not mince words here. I want to see some investment into our community. And when I was working in the mayor's office, actually, that was the time when the forestry sector completely tanked. And there was not one mill going, there was not one piece of wood moving anywhere around this region. And
Except for into my stove.
well, thank you for that. And so I was a part of the Mayor's Health Sector Task Force that was created to look at ways to diversify our economy so we weren't so reliant on natural resources. And I think that I want to see more of that. I want to see us building some synergies to diversify our economy a little bit better, building those opportunities because youth are leaving, but they've been leaving since the 60s. They weren't looking to stay in the jobs that we had an abundance of back in those days with the mills going and the grain elevators and the railway, and they were leaving for something else. And so what were they going for? I think they wanted more of those white collar jobs and some, professionalism that they were looking for that we were lacking. And with technology being what it is today, I don't see why we can't provide some sort of opportunity to be more attractive so that people do choose to live in Thunder Bay. Our region is suffering right now. As you likely know, our demographics are aging. We have slow growth, and we really need to start addressing this. And I want to see us creating an opportunity to build a city that people choose. They're excited to live in Thunder Bay and be proud to call Thunder Bay home.
There's so many questions now I've got. Oh my God. And the one is really around growth. I read a book recently that's really trying to put our global challenges and climate change in perspective.
Right.
And growth is what he's identified as one of the biggest issues. Our population doubling, tripling in the world. We're going to come back to that in just a moment, but now we have to take a short break.
Okay.
Please stay with us.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guest today is Kristen Oliver, Councillor for the City of Thunder Bay. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So you really stimulated me in the last episode or component here, and the issue of growth is one that I've been interested in, certainly in our region. And we've got small towns, like through NOMA, through the Municipal Association, you'll have experience from a lot of different perspectives and communities.
Right.
So we've had communities that grow up around the railroad or a mine or the mill, and then things change and the community is now in crisis because the employer's gone. When we think about economic development, and planning for the future, is there a different way? Or are we just stuck with kind of that boom and bust piece?
Yeah.
Because we seem to be saying to industry, yes, come quick, give us jobs next year.
Yeah.
You know, and then is that so I get reelected? I'm not sure, next year. But what about 20 or 40 years or for our kids?
Right.
How do we balance those pieces? Have you thought about that, or what are different communities doing to address those issues?
Well, even let me throw one more at you. Yes, we do have a lot of municipalities that are single industry towns and rely heavily, mostly on the boom and bust industries around natural resources, like you said. But I think what's even further adding a challenge to this problem is automation, and so we're seeing a lot of jobs in these industries going to be automated just because of the technology that's available, and they don't have to rely on human beings. But the interesting part to that too is, while production does increase because of automation, I think, and I've read this, and you may have read this too, we're starting to see more opportunities opening up further down the pipe because they're now pumping stuff out of the ground or moving things so quickly that it is creating some other opportunities. And I think what we need to really identify is where the value added pieces are. So if we're taking something out of the ground, if we're extracting a piece of it, is there something else that we can be doing something different with? And when we look at a world that's trying to make cars lighter and trailers cheaper and that type of thing, there's things that we could be using that are a byproduct of what we're seeing in the natural resources industry and utilizing that for something different. So I think that's where we could see some opportunity for growth, especially around the research and development piece of it. So we're creating some opportunities for students from Lakehead University and Confederation College to identify things that we could be using these different products for. And then you take it on to commercialization and marketing it. So there's a whole bunch of different working pieces, but I think if we can try to find some way of being constructive and bringing it all together, I think that'll drive our economy and it'll keep our youth here. It'll give them those jobs that they may not have found in this community 30, 40, 50 years ago. And it's building those opportunities and making yourself attractive too. So when I look at the Centre for Research and Innovation in the Bioeconomy, or you may know it as CRIBE, they're working really, really hard with Lakehead University and amongst other partners across Ontario at developing and identifying those research opportunities. And what are we doing to utilize, our forests? Our forests are renewable. And in my opinion, keeping trees around for hundreds of years may not be the best thing if we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint, because at some point they're going to fall to the ground and rot, and you're going to see carbon going back into the air, or they're going to burn. So, what opportunities can we find to be using those trees for something else that's capturing all that carbon and you're not putting that back into the air? So when I look at how dependent we are on our natural resource industry, I think maybe we should be looking at some opportunities around the research development piece and commercialization and marketing and see what we can do with that.
And what can you do as a city councillor to further that goal?
Well, we just have to make sure that we're creating opportunities to be attractive. So, there's so many pieces to this too. We need to really invest, I think, in our quality of life infrastructure and make it so that there's things for young families to do when they do come into our community. Why choose Thunder Bay? And we have to balance that still with all the roads and sewer infrastructure and everything else that we need to do too. So, and I'm going to wager a guess that the flow of provincial dollars are probably going to start slowing down over the next 3 years. Our indications are looking like Mr. Ford is going to be tightening the fiscal belt a little bit, which I think is going to force municipal governments to do the same thing. We're going to have to look at identifying some efficiencies, and that may not mean job losses. I don't want people to start to panic about that, but what are we doing to create these opportunities so that we're finding the efficiencies to streamline programming or service delivery a little bit better, so it's reducing the costs and in turn reducing our reliance on increasing taxes. In Northern Ontario as a whole, our property taxes are high, our service delivery is high. We tend to deliver a lot more services that you don't see in the larger communities. And when the larger communities have access to dollars around transit and different programming that they need to rely on, you tend to see provincial and federal dollars flowing a little bit more into that, where we don't see that same opportunity in the north. So it's trying to, it's a lot of work for us in the north to be attractive and to create those opportunities. We're going to have to rely on immigration. We don't have the birth rates to support it, even when we take into account all of our Indigenous population that we have throughout the whole Northwest. We don't have enough people at the end of the day to maintain the jobs that we have coming on stream now with the baby boomers retiring. And what are we doing as a community to identify how we're moving forward with that? Fortunately, there are a lot of really good community partners that have come to the table. You may know that Thunder Bay's applied for an immigration pilot through the federal government, which I believe it's around 2,750 people will be divided up, but that's families too coming. So industry has to provide a job, and then we can match that those people up. And it's building our economy, it's building our community, and having those discussions with people, what is it that you want to see? And we're starting to see more diversity now with people moving in. So we're starting to see programming change. Like when we're looking at the students at Confederation College that are coming in, a lot of them are coming from India. They want to play cricket, like that's what they're used to. And so I think that's an opportunity for us to expose our citizens to some new programming. But what are we doing to mitigate that and make it so that we have that social infrastructure to be attractive, the cultural infrastructure as well?
Mm-hmm. Now, one issue around, that building better communities is the issue of safety. Mm-hmm. And I've asked a number of my guests, mm-hmm. where do we see the balance in terms of putting money into really could be prevention or really capacity development in our communities, right, as opposed to the enforcement and mm-hmm. incarceration.
Right.
So what's the cost to keep a person in jail now?
Well, or even having them housed at shelter house in comparison to providing some sort of permanent housing structure for people.
So if we have these tough decisions, do we fix the roads and the infrastructure?
Yeah.
Or do we take away from supports for young people? Mm-hmm. How's that going to play out for us?
Right. So it's tricky in the sense that some of this, I personally believe, is the responsibility of the provincial government through the Ministry of Health and also through the Ministry of Housing. I think that our property tax dollars should be used to build communities, to build the infrastructure that we require. When we have to start delivering healthcare services, I think that's a challenge for the municipal sector to have to pay for.
We're going to have to take a short break, and we're going to come right back to that after a short break. Please stay with us.
Thanks.
Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guest today is Kristen Oliver, the councillor for the City of Thunder Bay. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So we were just talking a little bit about, in a way, some of the challenges of provincial municipal responsibility, and had to kind of butt in to kind of take a station break. But how do we sort that out? How do we, so we don't have the support for a young person to finish high school. Mm-hmm. They end up getting incarcerated. Well, but that's the provincial money pays for that. Mm-hmm. But then we may be suffering in terms of policing and whatever on our side. Mm-hmm. Where do we go? How do we figure that out?
Yeah. So the thing that I think is really important to recognize too is that the community, the municipality, does have an obligation to provide for our citizens in this community, and that includes everyone that comes to Thunder Bay or lives in Thunder Bay. And we need to, I think, really address the systemic issues that we're having with the social issues at a grassroots level. So I know that the city is actually doing some youth inclusion programming. I'm a huge proponent of providing those services and needs assessments for the people that really require it. We do have some neighborhoods in our community that definitely are more challenged than others. What are we doing to help guide these kids along? Provide that mentorship, provide those supports so that they can grow up and become a productive member of our society and our community. I'm happy to see that the federal government did step up to the plate actually and provided some pretty good dollars on creating the funding mechanism and the programming that we can do with that. Going back to like the Ministry of Health needs to step up to the plate too to deliver the healthcare services that we need, like detox centers, those types of things that are a challenge for our community, and they're falling back onto the residential taxpayer. And like I said earlier, it does concern me because I don't know how sustainable that is. In fact, I can tell you it's not sustainable at all. We need to have those supports by the dollars that are collected from income tax to provide the services that the federal and provincial governments are responsible for. So the challenge is, how do we do that? Like, we know that, like I said earlier, there's going to be some fiscal restraint, I think, coming to municipalities and transfer funds that we're seeing from the federal and provincial government. But having said that, I know that this government, the provincial government in particular, is big on finding efficiencies. And maybe, I always, like Rahm Emanuel, the former chief of staff for President Obama, said, never waste a good crisis. And I think that we're in that stage now. Let's not waste this opportunity to identify every way and means that we can to deal with the systemic issues that we're having for people that are trying to get the help and supports that they need.
You know, when I hear that word efficiencies, no one talks about, is this short term, medium term, or longer term? So I can save money, you know, by cutting all our social services.
Right.
And then 10 years from now, we're going to like be in a real jackpot in terms of what our society is going to look like.
Right.
So that was efficient
Yeah.
for this year's budget.
Yep.
But what is the impact down the road?
And that's the thing. You have to
How does
identify
this work?
what the long-term vision is going to be. And, you know, I, as you may note, I'm the chair of the Board of Governors for Confederation College, and we were recently down in Queen's Park doing a lobby day, and it was really important. We had a really good couple discussions with some of the ministers and MPPs, and I was trying to drive home the importance that education plays. And every opportunity to have education is what's going to drive our economy. When people have the skills that they need, whatever it's going to be, whatever job they want, as long as they can have those skills that are going to help develop them and make them productive and part of our workforce, I don't see that as a bad investment. And you know, we've really got to hammer away at that. Like, even if we're looking at if there's going to be cuts to social assistance programming, that's fine if you want people to go to work, but are you going to provide those opportunities and the skill set and develop that so that they can go out and get that job? And I think that that's where, when I'm talking about efficiencies, where are we putting our money? Are we just cutting for the sake of cutting, or are we going to look at moving it to this program or this opportunity here so that people can better themselves and get off assistance, get off the system, whatever it is they're doing? But it's that you're right. We do need to take a look at that long-term plan and what that's going to look like, because I think sometimes there's unintended consequences to decisions that are made, and we've really collectively, between the municipal government, provincial government, federal government, what are we doing to work hand in hand to make sure that we're creating opportunities and betterment for not just our cities, but our province and our nation as a whole?
These are really, you know, interesting discussions and tough decisions. You know, my own background has been trying to help folks who don't fit into society so readily to gain those skills so that their lives are improved.
Right.
And no one really wants to support that financially.
No.
You know, I mean, we did a pilot project with Shelter House around communication and kind of life skills. And everyone raved about it. External evaluation, you know, the ability to communicate, if you're a homeless person, with the police officer, with the nurse, with the staff, with each other, is key to whether you can navigate, right?
Exactly.
Rather than get into fisticuffs because there's so much misunderstanding. It's not very much of an investment, but no one wants to make it.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
how, you know, that's where I see it, you know, where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. I can see tremendous return on investment down the road, but there's no funds for it.
Well, I think
Except the city is our main
Right.
supporter.
For
You know, and they're
shelter house,
saying
yeah.
we can't do this.
Yeah.
We can't support everything. It's too hard.
Yeah, and then that's
understand
always
that.
the balance and that's the challenge, right? Is
Yeah.
trying to find that balance, and that's where I'm saying that creating those synergies. That's where our partnerships with the provincial and federal government really need to come into play. So for every dollar that you send in income tax, the federal government keeps 47 cents, the province gets 44 cents, and municipalities get 9 cents. So there's a lot of money up there that how is it trickling down, and is it being efficient? And you know, not just on these feel-good projects, but you know, if you look at Europe, like Europe's years ahead in the way that they address some of these issues, and there's some really good data to support that. And you know, I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. I really don't. I think that the information's there, and we can find a way to make it work.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thanks.
You know, I think your training as an information technologist in a way in healthcare
Yeah.
is so key, because it's all about information now to make the best decisions.
Yes.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure too, Steve. Thanks.
And I want to encourage folks to stay safe and tune in again next week. See you soon.